What's going on? What is going on? I thought, a list of things to document, but I don't seem to see it. Maybe that was in the notebook here. Aha! I already documented one of these things today off stream. Happy Halloween, everybody. I am dressed as somebody in his hotel room who doesn't want to get a disease by going out and doing Halloween stuff. Dressed as IGF host. No, a costume as an IGF host would involve saying cringy banter that isn't actually that funny or really funny at all. You mean I'm not trick-or-treating? Well, I have my own private trick-or-treat session here because I have a lot of snacks. In fact, well, we should save the snack overview for when more people show up, I assume. I can't see how many people are here, but it's probably not the maximum. Am I looking at the spooky parts of the code? There aren't that many spooky parts left. We actually got rid of most of the spooky parts, which is good. Okay, so I want to do a little more documenting. So yesterday on the stream, I was working through the memory allocation thing, and then I just went ahead and finished that today off stream, and then I did a whole other thing off stream. So now I've finished 2 documentations. Wow, some of these are really old as I get down toward the bottom of this file. There's all sorts of things in this file that don't even, like this is not, hold on. Yeah, that's not even a thing anymore, bro. Neither's that. Great. Anyway, I was looking through these old notes to see if there were suggestions about what to document here, but I don't see them. That's surely fixed. That's surely fixed, I think. Okay, well, the line numbers on this file have changed tremendously. Is Indie Fund still alive? Yes, Indie Fund is still alive and still funding games. We are doing that, and the games we are funding are good. So that's nice. Wow, boy. It's almost like I don't want to document anything. Okay, we can document scoping. I'm not sure that it's probably worth doing. Probably worth documenting scoping. The size of to-do.txt seems anxiety-inducing. Oh, that's nothing, dude. The witness to-do was worse than this. And a lot of these are old and have been done or are out of date and are no longer the plan. Like, here's just some code that was pasted, right? Like, it's not that bad. I don't even remember why this was pasted. Well, if I don't know why, it's not relevant anymore. Oh yeah, that's been fixed. That's been done. All right. No, I'm in a hotel and there's somebody having a spooky Halloween party right across the hall, I think. It's very unlucky for me. Okay. I am going to drink a liquid snack. This is a truly pineapple flavored hard seltzer, and I'm sure it'll make everything better in terms of explaining things. It has 100 pineapple calories in it. I wanted to get a White Claw, but I didn't see one. So, although there was a place I could have looked today that I didn't. Dang it. A bug for the witness in the compiler to do. Yeah, sometimes I just put things in the wrong to do because it's whatever I have open. Would I mind patching the challenge to be a bit easier? Yes, I would. Do I like beer? No. How would you like to see WebGL cloth simulation? I would not be interested at all in WebGL anything. Do not be bringing that WebGL stuff around here. You know what's much better than WebGL? Dark milk chocolate from French Broad Chocolate in Asheville, North Carolina. That's what's better than WebGL. Just checking it out. No, I don't want to check out anything written in WebGL ever. My life would improve if WebGL disappeared out of the universe. Okay, get rid of all of this stuff. It's stupid. Don't bring it to the channel. It's all right. If you think I'm going to like WebGL, then you don't know me. All right, that is clear. Do I have enough for all of you? Yes. Here, I'll hold it up and just take this piece of chocolate from my hand, and then it's yours. Okay. This drink is not very good. We'll see how it tastes mixed with chocolate. Still not very good. We may be on water tonight. Mostly. Okay. So here's some notes that I had. Like, I sort of wrote this essay for the cover page of the website and never finished it. But at least I'm reminding myself that that's there, which is great. I think we won't work on that tonight, but it's good to know it's there. Okay, we could do print function. We could do scoping. I guess I decided on scoping. Right? What if I went and stood right outside the door of those Halloween party people? I don't want to do that because when I opened the door just for a second to put my "Do Not Disturb" sign on, so much cigarette smoke smell wafted in that, like, I just had to close the door immediately. I do not want to be out there in the hall. You're on spiked apple cider. That could be good. I really, if I were home, I would be making a chai truce right now. What do I mean by programs want to be n squared? I mean that the universe wants to be n squared. And programs are a subset of the universe, all right? So if you just have a little particle in the universe, it gets entangled with everything around it, right? And the number of entanglements is O of n squared, right? Because every particle gets entangled with every other particle. They all affect each other. That's how your program behaves. Not really in a quantum way, but like everything is being affected by the constraints imposed by everything else and is trying to meet the requirements of everything else. And, you know, when we go to software engineering school, we learn to try to orthogonalize things to minimize those kind of connections, right? But in reality, there's a limit to how effectively we can do that, and it sort of depends on the problem you're trying to solve. So really what it's like you have a square matrix full of coefficients, and you would like to make it a diagonal matrix because that would mean that everything's orthogonal to everything else and doesn't affect each other. And that's completely impossible, right? And so what you end up with is a matrix with some elements that are zero, but not even very many elements are diagonal at all, right? That's what software engineering is like. What makes a real programming language? You can decide for yourself what real means. You can decide for yourself. Oh. I did those. Yeah, okay, this file is kind of long, I admit it. But we just did delete some lines. Yeah, we will make a website eventually, but there is no current website in existence. Does anyone, let's just, since I'm not too eager to start documenting, because I've done a bunch of it today, we'll make the file, but I could just say, hey, does anyone have any other questions? Open season on any topic. Open season. Let's do like 150. You know, we need to make a folder for this probably. Wait. Oh. Why was I asking about visual programming? Am I planning on doing something? No, I have way too much to do right now. I'm vaguely interested in the topic, and I wanted to know if there were things that I wasn't aware of that were really good. And so far, the answer is no, although I haven't checked replies in a while. So maybe somebody said something that I don't know about. Do I think the country is going to have a divorce? Not anytime soon. I've mentioned that if you want to be serious about programming, you need to use real programming languages. I see. So, well, I can be more specific. If you want to be serious about programming, like if you want to be good at programming, you have to use a statically type checked language. That's just factual. Anyone who tells you otherwise is actually not a good programmer. And the reason why is because it enables you to program things that are much more complex than you can do in a dynamic language. And it's working on problems of that larger complexity and not getting mired down in them, because the static type checking helps you deal with all the complexity. That's what makes you good, right? You can't be good if you're stuck in the kiddie pool the whole time. You can't become an Olympic swimmer in a kiddie pool. That's not going to happen, right? So that's what I mean by that. So Casey's idea of how to do metaprogramming is pretty different from what I'm doing in this language. So I don't think that what I'm doing appeals to him actually that much. I think he's very wrong about what is a good kind of metaprogramming, but that's fine. We have differences of opinion there. I had a line talking about integer addition being UB, and compiler programmers denying that was the case. No, they don't deny that's the case. They just don't think it's stupid. Chandler Carruth has a talk on YouTube about how it's great that it's UB. And I'm like, this dude's off his rocker. It was one of the dumbest talks that I've seen in a long time. Unfortunately, because I think others of his talks are good. It's just that one was really dumb, dude. Any recent book recommendations? No, I haven't really been reading lately. Unfortunately. What makes a great software engineer? A lot of practice combined with self-criticism. Again, you have to be willing to evaluate how well you are doing, and you have to be able to notice what you are doing poorly. And that is not a very popular thing right now. Right now on the internet, it's all about feeling good for being included in a community. You won't get better by feeling good at being included in a community. You'll get better by criticizing your own work and seeing what's not as good as it could be and improving those things. Will I support an exception system? No, I don't think exceptions are a good idea. I think they're a terrible idea. Is there an example metaprogram that generates a tags file for my editor? Someone, I think, did that at one point. I don't really use it because I don't use tags files ever. I don't even know. I've literally never used an Emacs tag file in my life. I don't know how they work. Out of 3 binary file types for Windows, Linux, and Mac, which was the most sane? I didn't do all of them. In fact, I didn't do the debug info for any of them. And I wrote the original object file writing for Windows, but that was a while ago. But it looks to me like Windows is the most sane out of those 3. But I'm not sure, because I don't have the same level of experience in all of them. Yeah, C# is statically typed. Statically typed means if you make a mistake, like pass a string to a function instead of an integer, or misspell the name of a variable, that you get told at compile time, not sometime during runtime when you happen to hit that piece of code that has the mistake. There's a tremendous difference between those two things. It is not to be underestimated. Even though GC is a separate thing from statically type checked. I don't like GC, but it's different from statically type checked. So you can definitely have a statically type checked GC language. C# is one example of that. Standard ML of New Jersey is another example of that. Lots of modern Lisp dialects, like I think Clojure is statically type checked. So yeah, there's lots of statically type checked GC languages now. Haskell isn't it? That's GC'd, I think. I just want to thank everybody for coming to the stream tonight on Halloween. I know you all have many choices about where to spend your Halloween night on a year when nobody wants to go out and get germs from everybody else. So thanks for coming. C is probably not a good example. C is an okay example. It's just the type system in C is not that good. Yeah, Go is statically type checked but garbage collected. So is Java. Yeah, lots of examples. Favorite Halloween candy? Like that's specifically a Halloween candy? Or like just a candy that you might get on Halloween? See, that's an ill-formed question. Is there a limit of the number of parameters you can return? No. I mean, there's some practical compiler implementation limit, but it's around 2 billion or something. Do we have intrinsics? Yes. Is GC a good thing or a bad thing? If you're a professional programmer, it is a bad thing. If you are not a professional programmer and you are not attempting to write programs that are deployed to a large number of people in an industrial strength way, then it's fine. What did I think of Braid getting into AGDQ? Like a new one, like a current one? I know it was in a previous one. Like a year ago or something. Was that a beer? It is a disgusting pineapple hard seltzer. It's not disgusting, but it's not good. What do I think of programming languages that try to imitate the spoken languages? That doesn't work very well. You're debating the merits of homework for kids. You feel that there are some things that you just have to practice repeatedly in a homework style, but is that at odds with not boring kids with stupid busy work? I think it's true that there are things that you have to practice a lot, but look, that's not most things. Let people pick what they want to practice a lot and let that be their homework. Like, if people could pick what homework they do for a certain amount of time, then that would be fine. But just don't give them things that they're not interested in. Because they're not going to learn from doing the homework either. They're just going to learn to hate homework. Have I heard about Dion, a programming language project that tries to store the AST? Yeah, I mean, that's fine. There have been things that did that before. I think it's a fun side project or something, but I mean, that's a thing that languages started doing in the 80s, and nobody has yet demonstrated that being super productive territory, although maybe it will be at some point. Like, text files are actually really useful. Text files are a really good format. Can I share any extra tips for managing complexity? Do you ever write essays or note files with the intent of making a concept clearer in my own mind? I almost never do. I started doing that recently, like, because the compiler is pretty complicated sometimes. I started adding notes about, how things go or why certain decisions were made the way they were. But I can't say it's a thing that I do very often. Favorite cup of tea? Harney and Sons Hot Cinnamon Spice Loose Leaf. What do I think of Haskell's type system? I don't think of Haskell's type system. Does a statically typed interpreted language make sense? Sure. Sure. I don't think that's as good as a statically typed compiled language, but there are such things. It's just that before they start interpreting, they need to do a type check step. Do I consider university degrees in the computer science field like programming useful? Only if it's from one of the better computer science schools, and even then, you probably could have gotten a better education by yourself at this point. Before the internet, they were clearly useful. Now, I think you could learn much more in less time for less money. The only thing is you miss out on the actual purpose of college, which is to have a social life and make connections and possibly find somebody to marry, which I did zero of, so college was kind of a waste for me. That's the actual reason why college exists, though. It's not really to learn things. Will people be able to completely bypass context-style stuff and write code that's equivalent to dependency-free C code? Those are like two different things. What do you mean by context-style stuff? Do you mean using the context variable? The context variable isn't about external dependencies. And what do you mean by dependency-free C code? Do you mean C code that can be compiled without including any headers? Or do you mean C code that links to absolutely nothing, right? You could do both of those things, but they're different things. It's expensive because it's Paradise Island. Yeah. If I had known that at the time, I might have tried to have more fun in college, but I didn't. So it was kind of miserable. I also wouldn't have known how to do it back then. I didn't have the social skills. I still don't, actually, but I can do a lot better than I did. Is college just an expensive dating service? Well, that's why a lot of the women are there. Or, not the only reason, but a significant part of the reason. The problem is, now a lot more women than men go to college on average. So there kind of aren't enough guys. Your CS degree in Australia is terrible. It's just a bit of paper telling employers I can computer. Yeah. I mean, Yeah, that's what most CS degrees are. That's why, I would only recommend getting one if it's from a very good computer science school. Have I decided where to move to? Nope, I'm still looking around. Still looking around. Okay, look at this wonderful documentation that we have. You're not sure how much overhead is introduced in the way context stuff and stack traces and anything else. Then there's some threading and stuff. You do it. No. Can you expect to write an OS without issue? Yes, but if I were to write an OS, I would use the context stuff. Okay? Because it's so powerful that and the expense is so negligible. Like, look, there are correct trade-offs to make, and yeah, I don't know. Like, you can declare functions that don't have context. There's a directive for that, but I wouldn't do it unless you're trying to interface with something from the outside, because the context is very, very powerful. And and what it enables you to do performance wise actually gains you tremendously more performance than you would lose by just having an extra parameter everywhere, which is a very small cost. And for reasons why, we explained that in the memory management thing over the last couple of days. Singapore rocks. Yeah, I just Singapore is sort of one of the places where I would consider moving, but maybe not that seriously right now, because I'm not culturally from Singapore, right? And so that would be a very large move. That said, the environment for businesses is very good. Um, it's probably really hard to get citizenship. I could probably get residency by um, starting a company there. I don't know. I don't know what the rules are lately. Like, I know when I checked a couple of years ago, Singapore was like very much not in the mood to have people immigrate, and it's probably still roughly like that. Yeah, the problem with Singapore too is even though China doesn't have legitimate geopolitical claim over Singapore the way it has over some other places, like after China grabs Hong Kong and Taiwan, why not Singapore? Like, you know what I'm saying? What is Malaysia going to get mad? Like, it's just so that's a little bit worrisome. But then I don't really know. The Singapore government is highly competent, and maybe they have a plan for staving that off. You're a freshman in college, but starting to see the point, not see the point in continuing. If you can learn more by yourself, you've been interested in low level C programming for a while and was thinking that it might be more useful to drop out and focus full time on learning and doing projects. Should you look into getting a contracting internship beforehand or keep going until you're confident in your skills to get a full time job? I don't know. That's a decision for you to make. The thing is, I'm not the right person to ask about this because I haven't had to apply for a job in a tremendously long time. Oh, well, not tremendously, but like the last time I even worked on a contract was while I was working on Braid before it came out, like in 2006 or 7. All right. So it's been 14 years since I tried to get a job of any kind, contract or full time. And even back then, it was mostly off my reputation, like people knew who I was and all that, right? So it's a very different situation from someone talking about potentially dropping out of school. Again, though, I think school is a big waste of time and money most of the time these days. So I wouldn't discourage you from dropping out. Just make sure if you drop out, you do a good job. Don't drop out and then like watch Twitch all day. That's not the right thing to do. Is the company still a thing? Yeah, company's still a thing. We're just a little more distributed right now. Oh yeah, Casey has a C course that's coming out soon. And it will be a paid course, but I don't think it's going to be tremendously expensive. Like I think it's priced for individuals, right? It's not priced just for rich people. Move to Kentucky. I want to swing through Kentucky at some point. I don't know anything about Kentucky, honestly. You can get an employment pass first and apply for residency after. But I wouldn't be an employee of another company, right? I would be my own company. So I don't know if that changes it. Maybe not. I haven't looked into the laws very seriously because I haven't taken it super seriously. But honestly, depending on how things look after this election, I might be feeling like the USA is over for a while, depending on what happens. The problem with the USA right now, and I said this yesterday, but looking around on the internet at what people are saying and what news outlets are doing and what technology companies are doing, I'm basically realizing that I can't really respect anybody, and very few people have competence and integrity as high priorities, which are the people I want to hang out with. And certainly almost nobody is trying to solve problems in the US. They're just trying to go through political processes. I don't care about political processes. I want to solve all these problems that we have, many of which are honestly not very hard to solve. And so it's really embarrassing that we haven't just fixed them, right? And so, we might be seeing the end state of a rich democracy right now, right? We might be seeing what happens when, well, not exactly right, but you know what I mean by democracy, right? We might be seeing what happens when a rich democracy destroys itself because it's bred people who are too weak and greedy and selfish and don't want to be smart or do the right thing, right? So I don't know. And what I'm saying here is not really contingent on who wins the election, because I'm seeing this in both sides, man. So we'll see. But I'm not feeling good about the USA right now. Do you foresee any place for this language in the education beginner computer space? It's not really a beginner programming language. Use Logo or something for beginners. I definitely fit in Singapore or Hong Kong. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Again, I've visited Singapore a couple times and I enjoyed it, but I also felt like an outsider, significantly so. So it's hard to say. What's the cost of the context? One extra pointer pushed on the stack for every function call. Well, it's probably in a register, right? Because of the calling convention. Although maybe not. Like, it might be on the stack. It might be in a register. But yeah, something like that. China plays the long game. They're not going to do much in our lifetimes. I'm not so sure about that. What I heard, I went to China a couple years ago, and I was just hanging out talking to people in mainland China. And one thing that seemed to be common knowledge was that she, as part of his legacy as leader, wanted to clean up all the messes with the various territories, right? Uh, by which was meant, and the people who were saying this meant it in a relatively positive way, like, I mean, they're mainland Chinese, right? They don't think these are people who are like, yeah, Tibet's part of China. There's uh, no controversy there, right? So um, they were saying it's well known that she wants the legacy of his presidency to be that these things like Hong Kong and Taiwan got cleaned up. Now, that might be harder to achieve than he would like, but supposedly that is a thing that the people know. Again, I'm not from China, but that's what I heard. Is it cold? It's a little bit cold, but I'm also, since I'm not wearing really a costume for Halloween, I figured I would at least wear a coat. Actually, I wear this every day while I'm traveling usually. So this is just what I look like normally. Kentucky is all bourbon and horses. I'm not really into bourbon or horses. Wow, I'm so far back in the chat. Thoughts on Gorogoa? Recommended. That's why I should move to Asia. No one cares about SJWPC there. It's all about business and achieving personal success, leaving others alone. Yes. So those parts of Asia I like. I also like the part, well, it's to a lesser degree, but I like the part about respecting skill and competence, which is honestly not something that we have a lot of in the US. We claim we do, but we actually don't. We often disrespect skill and competence to a great degree. So I don't like that. However, right, the part of Asia, so Asia has this interesting thing where every person is supposed to achieve personal success, but it's usually done through groups, right? There's like strength in groups. Like strong, like if you work for a company, you want to work for a strong company, right? And maybe that's a little bit more of a Japan Korea thing than a China thing, but I think it's also a China thing. I don't know. I don't know how it is in Singapore, right? But the thing is, I'm much more of an independent person who tries to do the things that I want by going over here away from where all the big companies are and doing my thing over here, because that's how I get the things that I want to do done. And that is something that is quintessentially American. Even Europeans don't do this very well. Americans are way better at this than most other countries. And I think I would miss that if I left this country. Who knows, though? How much do I think social media is contributing to social technological decline? It's contributing quite a bit, but the seeds were already there decades ago. Like, this is something we've been working on throwing away our society for a long time. Certainly since 2001, but probably for a while before that. What was my first programming language? Commodore VIC-20 Basic. You have a hard time believing most people ever cared that much about solving problems, just that most people don't, and they have platforms now. I don't know. Move to somewhere in Alaska with high-speed internet. I don't have any hot beverages. So this hotel room has like, I guess it has a tea set, but not any tea that's any good. China is also heavily investing in Africa, also South America. China is investing a lot in South America. Thoughts on the Starlink and bunker farm strat? I don't know that much about the strategy. Singapore is a dictatorship. Many in Asian countries are a dictatorship, but they have created environments conducive towards attracting business. Hence, these dictatorships are competing with each other. I mean, it might be the time in history when benevolent dictatorships pull ahead. That might just be the thing, you know. I mean, that'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 20 or 30 years. I should still be alive, right? By the way, as I advertised in the stream, we have Confetti Party Sugar Cookies, which if you would like one here, just I'll hold it out and you can grab it off the camera. I haven't tried them, so I don't know how good they are. Depends on where in Asia. Southeast Asia is not the same as that. Yeah, I mean, like the thing I said about strong company and whatever, like Thailand doesn't feel like that. Cambodia doesn't feel like that. But I don't think I would move to Thailand or Cambodia unless I wanted to hang out with all the yoga girls on Koh Phangan sometime after coronavirus is mostly done. Isn't this a very spooky, scary cookie? Okay. I think there is a hair in my cookie, which is very spooky and scary because I opened this from a package. It is not my hair because it is very long. So you can see this is what happens when the downfall of America happens, is you open your packaged cookie and there's a giant hair in it. See? Okay. I talked about there being no respect for competence in the U.S. Can I talk about how I've come across that? Well, I mean, it's everywhere, honestly, but if you want to talk about the election, there was exactly one candidate in the Democratic primaries who demonstrated a personality of paying serious attention to problems and attempting to solve them in intelligent ways and creative ways. And that candidate was treated kind of like a clown and all but laughed off the stage by the major media companies, and the people just let that happen and or didn't care. So whoever gets elected president, y'all get what you deserve as far as I'm concerned. TRS-80, yeah. A TRS-80 color computer was my second computer. Or not mine. That was my first computer at home. But it was my second version of BASIC that I ever used. These cookies are kind of gross. Not even considering the hair or not. So Do not recommend. We're going to switch to the Starbucks Marshmallow Dream Bar. Move to Iceland? I haven't been to Iceland. Is the follicle attached to it? I didn't want to look. Yang just had one solution to everything. No, I mean, he had a lot of ideas. It's just he had a primary one that he was using as marketing. And I'm not even sure if that was the right idea. But what I'm saying is he was clearly an intelligent person who was trying to solve problems and not just play politics. RIP. Do I think it's possible to salvage the USA? I don't know. I don't know. But I do know that I don't feel as at home here as I once allowed myself to. I look at a lot of these people and institutions and the way they're behaving and saying, I'm not sure that I see much of value in these institutions anymore. I'm not sure I want to live around here anymore. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Ever thought about Switzerland? No. Do I know Gabe Newell? Not really. I've said hi to him once or twice in life. I know Jay Stelly somewhat better, although I haven't even seen Jay in a long time. The two times I remember vaguely waving hi to Gabe, both times I was at Valve. The last time was, or maybe it was the same day. The last time was when they had their secret VR project before it was announced, and Mike Abrash worked there, and I was there to visit Mike. It had to be different times. And then before Portal 2 came out, they were having a Portal 2 playtest in their office. And a bunch of indie developers who came there for a Steam meeting, got to play Portal 2. This was like a month before Portal 2 came out, so it was basically the final game. Do I think the core problem of USA is capitalists maximizing profits through any means necessary? No. That is not even in the top 10 problems that we have. If I stopped using social media and watching the news, would I really notice the degradation of the US? I would notice that all our educational institutions are stupid and kind of useless now. And I would notice that our governments are kind of stupid and useless. Like I'm having to escape California right now because California is kind of a failed state. That has nothing to do with me being on social media. I mean, we can't even stop this virus that's actually pretty easy to stop. Like, if you made me benevolent dictator of the USA starting today, we could stop it pretty quickly and everybody would be happy with the solution. I don't know. We're just a bunch of fuck ups right now. Like, we can't do anything. It's embarrassing. Why isn't Valve making more games these days? They released a game this year, Half-Life Alyx. They released a few games over the past several years. You might have forgotten them because most of them didn't do that well. I think they became less good at making games and or less dedicated to making the games good, and or drank their own Kool-Aid about what's good and what's not good. So a lot of these games didn't come out so well. But they have made games over the past several years. What would I say are the top 3 problems in the US? The number one problem is the inefficiency of government. We spend a tremendous amount of money to do very little, which has 2 sides to it that are both bad, right? It's the side of draining the money out of the productive economy, right? And then it's the opportunity cost of we could have done these good things, but didn't. Problem number 2 is related but different. It's that we don't solve problem number 1 because nobody seems to think it's a problem or care enough about it, right? So on the Republican side, everybody's like, we need to make government smaller, which is a little bit more correct, actually, I think, because if the government is so inefficient and terrible at using money, you should make it smaller, right? But Democrats are always like, oh, well, if we just raised taxes, we would solve all these problems, which is obviously not true, because the money isn't being used effectively now, right? You see this in places like California. California has the highest taxes in the USA. It's also the worst standard of living in the, well, that's a little bit of it. You could find isolated spots that are worse, but like, if you somehow normalized over how nice various places in California are supposed to be relative to others, like for density of size of city and things like that, it's the worst. It has the most money per capita, and it's the worst place per capita. Like, what's going on? More money isn't going to solve that problem, right? And so the US government has a version of the same problem. It's just less terminal, right? California is clearly a failed state right now. The US is on its way there, but isn't there yet. But in the same way that California can't stop fires that it's known about that have been happening regularly for 4 years, or even do anything intelligent about them, or even say anything intelligent when it happens the 4th year in a row and nobody's surprised. The US can't stop this virus. It's not that hard to stop. So, yeah, that looks like a failed state to me to some degree. Problem number 1 is getting private corporate money out of politics. No, that's completely false. Private corporate money has nothing to do with it. You're listening to the brainwashing. Look, if you watch the news, or you go on Twitter, or you listen to conversations about politics that are happening, they're all sports coverage, right? By which I mean they're all, oh, this team is doing this strategy, or this team is up by 2 points, or this team has this talking point today, and this is why it's true or this is why it's false, right? It's all nonsense. It all has nothing to do with what exactly are our problems and how do we solve them, right? A competent, serious, responsible population would be talking about during an election time, how are we actually going to run the nation and what are the decisions that we are making about how to run the nation? Okay? Does not happen. 0% of the discussion is that. 0.00% of the discussion is that. It doesn't matter how much money goes into the system from corporations. Put more in, put less in, it'll be the same thing because the problem is the people. The problem is the people are very disappointing. Until you come to grips with that fact, you won't see what's going on. The people are very disappointing. You have to fix the people. And that takes a long time. It's not an easy fix. You have to educate people to be intelligent and responsible and reasonable from a young age. And we broke the system that does that, so it's not very easy to fix. Capitalism is 100% the issue. Nope. You're calling me delusional, so you are timed out if I can get the Twitch API to work. You're just... Okay, you're lucky. I cannot... Oh, wait. Their new thing doesn't let me actually time people out. You're so lucky. Okay, next time I'm getting on the web interface so I can actually type timeout on people. The only reason people are homeless and hungry is politics? No, that's also false. It's completely false. I can't believe some of the stuff you guys believe. The emoji, I'm not going to read to the end to see that there's a winky face. If you start saying dumb stuff, I don't care if there's a winky face. Do I want communism? No. But I can't seriously believe all the corporate construction projects all over the place aren't rooted in money. When we talk about bad effects on the environment, we are most concerned with the city environment and all the roads and buildings and big boxes and trains, planes, and auto. Do you know the history of any communist country and how heavily and rapidly they industrialized and how poorly they treat the environment? Is not capitalism, guys. People who say that do not know anything about world history. It's astonishing. The US is much better environmentally than many places in the world that have much less capitalistic organizations. Just go anywhere, travel to some places, and you'll see this. Holy crap. I don't even know how to ban people anymore. I'm not sure if I just banned someone or not. We'll find out later. Yeah, it's exactly right. It's like, look, if you want communism, there are communist countries that you can go live in. There's not very many, but there are some. So you could just go there. Like, it's not that hard. Or if you think the economy should be more collective in the US, you can do that. Like, our economic system in the US allows you, and a number of people do things like this. Like, they start a restaurant with collective ownership by the employees, right? Or they start a small, technical company with collective ownership by the employees. And if you think that that's the best way to run something, then do that. And then get experience with that, and then come back and talk to me, all right? But, like, nothing's stopping you from doing that. It's forcing everybody to do that that's highly objectionable. How did I get to burnout, and how did I get back and get better? I worked too hard for a long time and neglected other aspects of my life, or didn't know how to be okay with working as much as I did, I guess. And then that company failed, and I felt bad about how my life had gone or something, and found it very hard to work for a while after that. And then I just gave it time and relaxed, and I don't know, it took a really long time to completely recover, but then eventually I did. You got to get back to clubbing if you're burnt out. All right. Let's try to actually do something. What do we're not programming today, guys. Read the chat title. In fact, I'm gonna ban everybody who irritates me, because honestly, it's hard enough to do what I do every day without coming on stream and having people say abrasive things. And so, I just don't need it, guys. Don't come here and do that. Now it's a little warm. I gotta take the coat off. Okay. Two different kinds of scope: data scope and imperative scope. In a data scope, there's no actively running code. It's just declarations of variables and whatnot, like you have at the top level of a file. Imperative scope, there's no notion of time in a data scope, and different declarations are independent of, are not ordered, unordered with respect to each other. Imperative scopes represent the code inside procedures that can be run at runtime. As you know, these procedures are to be read. The statements in these scopes are to be read from top to bottom. And they will happen in that order insofar as the programming language's semantics are concerned. The compiler is actually free to change. I keep breaking lines after 2, which is not really good style. Free to change the order in which things happen so long as you cannot tell the difference between, in order to make your program go faster. As long as you cannot tell the difference between the reordered instructions and the original ordering you wrote down. Right? I mean, this is very beginnery, but it's okay. Can you not set a constant relative to another constant in data scope, implying a certain level of ordering? No, you can do that, but they're not ordered by the scope. That's different. And I could try to get picky about that there, but it doesn't seem worth it. Like, are there no procedural initializers like constructors at file scope? No, there are not. No, there are not. I forgot something that I was going to come to later. Is there a concept of constant functions? What do you mean by a constant function? Some statements that inherently represent runtime code are not legal in data scopes because there is no well-defined time at which to run them. Unlike C++, we don't have a thing where constructors run in arbitrary and unpredictable order at startup. Thank goodness. Then we'll do some example. Here we are in a data scope. A float is 42. An integer is 5. Now, I actually don't know if this is legal. It might be, but I feel like we don't do that right now. Whoops. Yeah. See, I know my own programming language. We weren't really talking about politics stuff, by the way. Categorizing that as politics stuff is, I think, incorrect. Okay? Like, we have a very serious problem. What we're talking about is whether Western civilization continues to be one of the top paradigms of how to exist, or whether it doesn't, whether it falls behind other things that people may not enjoy so much living under, right? And that'll happen because we just became too lazy, if it happens. That's not really politics. That's something different. And if you don't see that, then I'm sorry, but, you know, that's all I'm going to say there. Lazy people like playing video games, though. I agree with that statement. Lazy people do like playing video games. Guess what China did? They kind of banned most video games for a while. I don't know if that's still going on. Yeah, there was a movie I saw a couple years ago called American Company. It might have been changed to American Factory, or maybe that's actually a different movie. But I saw this at Sundance Film Festival. It was pretty interesting. Like, you can go watch that movie and just extrapolate that to a national level, and you'll see what's going on right now. Hey, Johnson, how's it going, man? I hope you guys are doing okay over there. This kind of sucks in the USA right now. Okay. So I just want to do some examples of Datascope stuff. Whoops, I didn't put a frickin' comment, guys. Yeah, thanks for inviting me over to speak, by the way. I had a good time on that trip. I mean, just like a lot of trips, you know, I spent a lot of time just preparing the talk, but I enjoyed visiting Taiwan and I got to see the meat shaped rock, so that was very good. Um, yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a good time. It was a good conference, although I didn't get to stay for the expo part because I had to go. Where did I have to go? I think I I think I had Singapore like on that weekend when the expo was. Let's take a break from writing this documentation to look up uh, the meat-shaped rock. So so this thing. Uh, should we zoom in on the picture? It's not much better. I guess that's the maximum. If you go to Taipei, you can see this meat-shaped stone, which is very honored by all who are there. I had never seen it. It actually, okay, this picture actually does not really do it justice. If you go look at it, it like really looks like a piece of like pork or something. It's kind of crazy. So uh, that's one of the that's one of the things that you could see in Taiwan that you can't see anywhere else in the world. Oh yeah, the cabbage. I like the meat-shaped stone the most, though. That was my favorite. Have I ever been to the London Natural History Museum? You know, I walked by it last time I was in London, but I don't think I went in. Okay. This sort of looks like it's a United States government agency. Like every time I alt tab to that, it looks like, you know, the State Department or something. It's like, why do I have State Department documents? All right. So, um, at which to execute the code of the procedure. Procedure. You can see the meat-shaped thing in a Lenin mausoleum in Moscow. When I was there, is that the thing in Red Square where it says Lenin in big letters at the top? I think that was closed when I was there. Maybe I can't get in because I'm a Yankee anyway. Okay. Um, Okay. We're just, we're just laying down a basic explanation. Okay. There are certain ways of opening a data scope inside a procedural scope, mostly by declaring enums or structs. Once you're inside that data scope, oh yeah, we need to, down here we need to like talk about closures for all the functional language fans. It's open like 2 days a week. That's too bad. Usually when it's open, you can't miss it. Yeah, well, it was clearly very closed when I was there. We did go to Vedanka, though, or however you say that. And that was an interesting cultural experience. Vedanka. Or ha? Is it ha or ka? I don't know my Russian letters. What was my maximum amount of time when I was struggling with a bug? Back when I was not nearly as experienced a programmer as I am today, there probably were 1 or 2 bugs that took a week. But nowadays, it's very, very rare to have a bug that takes more than 2 days. And those only happen once every several years. Like, it's very rare. It's very rare to have a bug that takes a day. Mostly, like, a hard bug is probably like 2 to 4 hours, like a really hard bug. If you just sit down and work for those 2 to 4 hours and like don't watch YouTube or whatever, those are the hardest bugs generally. Have I implemented performant in 100% correct float to string and string to float routines? Not yet. We haven't really done that yet. What we have right now is just kind of good enough. Can't imagine what a 2-day bug looks like. I mean, it looks like the game is doing something really weird that we don't understand and we don't know how to repro it. That's maybe a 2-day bug. The one time that I remember, there's one time that I remember trying to debug something for 2 weeks, way back in the late 90s, at my first game company. And it turned out the reason it took 2 weeks was because it was a flaky motherboard on my computer. And, we had inadvertently damaged it a little bit, bringing it to E3 and back. Took 2 weeks. And so the reason that was so ambiguous for so long, today it would be pretty obvious, right? But back then we were running on like Windows 95, right, which doesn't have memory protection, and we were writing texture mappers by hand where you needed all the registers you could get. So you would like requisition the frame pointer and stuff like that to do things. And so I was like, am I doing something bad with the frame pointer now? Or like, are interrupts happening? What's going on? Because back then, even with perfectly working hardware, if you screwed up your assembly language program, you would blue screen your machine and have to reboot. And that would happen several times a day back then, okay? So what this bug looked like was I would blue screen my machine and have to reboot sometimes. And I was like, oh, it must be my changes to my texture mapper. And it's like, nope, faulty hardware. So I don't count that one because it wasn't really a bug. How did you figure out the hardware was faulty? Honestly, in the end, I just concluded that because it only ever reproed on that machine. Like every other machine ran fine. And I was like, oh, this is the one that I brought to E3 and like lugged around. Yeah, it was. So I guess I never like hard confirmed it. I think we did run some tests, like some, stress tests, and those also failed. So I guess that's a pretty hard confirm. But I never figured out exactly what part was faulty, right? Okay. So once you're inside that data scope, once again, you can't run imperative code, right? So whoops. Okay, so there's actually an exception to the bottom orderliness of imperative scopes. If a declaration is constant, you can use it if a declaration is constant, you can use it later on. You can use it even if it's defined later in the procedure than your current statement. Later in the procedure. That's because constant expressions being constant are not subject to any kind of timeliness. Okay, so I could say value is values dot 3. This is to keep us from getting bored. Okay, so this is just to aid in readability and to improve consistency with the way data scopes work. In a data scope, you can call procedures that are defined later on. It felt good design-wise to preserve this in imperative scopes. Here we are calling a procedure that is defined later in this imperative scope. Let's add another imperative statement just to show we can. And another constant expression. Okay, so this is all stuff that experienced programmers are not really going to be confused about. But it's just good to be specific about these things. Quick, is that the correct? Wait, 5 factorial is 120, 6 factorial is 720, 20 times 20 is 400, so that passes the smell test. If you declare an enum with an imperative scope, can use it outside of that scope to any degree. Does the whole game compile in about 1 second? Yeah, approximately. I don't understand the question. Can you use it outside of that scope to any degree? Oh, you mean can people reach into that scope? No, we don't currently have a way to do that, and I'm unlikely to add it because it just makes it easier to compile if you can't do that. Oh, daylight savings time. Yay, I get a little more sleep tonight. I'm glad you like Braid. Thanks for the nice comments. Have I looked at microfluidics? I don't know anything about microfluidics. Didn't the last Linux binary generation one take me almost 3 days? No, like I don't remember exactly what bug this was now, honestly, but It might have taken 3 streams, but streams are not full-time work days, guys. I don't remember how long it took, though. I don't remember the bug. Bubble memory. What are we doing? What is this code for? We are just writing some documentation about how this programming language works. Are there plans for parallelism? Yeah, use threads. Am I still working during the day? Yes, I am. Do I have a favorite feature? It's not like that. Like, individual features are not really that interesting. What's interesting is the combination of them and how they work together. Any plans for implicit SIMD? Probably not. This is not really that kind of programming language. Okay. What I should say is, okay. And, all right. Let's actually start a new procedure down here. Whoops. This part goes up here, I guess. All right. As we know, there's a hierarchical arrangement of scopes, as with in the same way as most modern programming languages. If you look up and if you use an identifier and it's not defined inside the current scope, and it's not defined inside the current scope, the compiler looks upward into parent scopes. Why 150 in the file name? So that when you look at these in the folder, they're ordered approximately in the order that you should look at them. It's like a page number in a book, but it's not a page number. You'd like to use this language for programming languages. Would I be down with that kind of thing? I mean, if people want to use it for whatever, that's fine. I don't want to try and say what it should be used for. The microfluidics is like logic gates using fluid. It's pretty interesting, definitely worth checking it out. Interesting. Okay. See, this is a little bit difficult because I'm trying to explain things that everybody takes for granted, right? In like every language works like this, but I'm explaining them so that I can get to the nuances of them that might be different for other languages, or that might be things that people don't think about that much, right? There are some nuances involved when we transition from one imperative scope into another, or into a data scope, right? A procedure that's defined inside another procedure cannot use the local variables of that procedure, of that outer procedure, because it has to be able to run independently by itself. Maybe you pass that procedure to some other utility function that saves it and calls it half an hour later after the outer procedure has returned, and that outer procedure's local variables no longer exist. There are currently no closures or other forms of automatic local variable capture in the language at this time. It's vaguely on the roadmap to add closures, but this hasn't been a high priority because they don't actually seem very useful compared to everything else. And yes, I took trying to remember the number. It was 6.001, man. currently and at this time. Good point. I could stop being a snot about the number and say sick P. Okay. Okay. However, okay. All right. So let's just call this outer procedure, because we just said outer and inner in that thing above. So let's stick to the same functionality. I always have to try these to make sure they're errors and we haven't reintroduced problems. Whoops. Lol. Let's go back and just copy factorial here. Let's make this a y. Attempt to use a variable from an outer stack frame. Closures are not supported. Boom. Okay. All right. No, well, we don't call it. See, this is an educational stream, because if you watch it for long enough, you'll remember the factorials of all the numbers. Yeah, it's a good point. We could bring up macros. Okay. So what's our global? Let's not say of course, but you know, we can use it. And then what else? We're getting fancy. We're getting schmancy, people, with the features. We're just busting out the features. Okay. Okay. That said, there are some nuances about data scopes. Not all data scopes are the same. The file level scope that we used at the beginning to declare global variables represents actual data that exists in your program that you can use and change. An enum creates a data scope, but an enum declaration, things allowed in that scope are constants. Constants of the declared enum type. Fruits Pineapple. Okay, I kind of fail because we didn't catch this one right here. I don't think. Let's see. New bug. Lol. It's easy to fix. I don't want to derail to fix that right now. It's just, it's just one of those things we never checked for. It's actually being treated probably as a constant. Probably. Anyway. The declaration of a struct also creates a data scope, but structs don't represent concrete data that actually exists in your program. They represent a format describing potential data that could at some time exist if you create a variable of that struct's type, right? I mean, we're starting to say some pretty abstract and weird things, but again, these are obvious things that C programmers do all the time that they don't even think about, right? Anyway. So if you declare a procedure internally to a struct declaration, which is legal, it can see the member variables of the struct, but you can't use them to store values. You can't manipulate them in the way that you could with global variables or with member variables in C++. Defining a procedure inside a struct doesn't make it a class method in some magical way. There are no methods in this language. A struct inside, or a procedure defined inside a struct, is just a procedure defined inside a struct. I feel like this is bad style most of the time, and it makes the compiler have to work a lot harder and has given me some gray hairs to make it work properly in all cases. But people who have done too much C++ seem to want to do this. I don't know, man. Okay. Yeah, maybe things will change for the better. We'll see. Maybe the U.S. will bounce back and be a really good place. There's no enum string right now. I thought about having an enum string, but it didn't. It didn't really seem worth it. Um, it's probably not that hard to implement, but like, eh. Also, in CPUs, don't instructions get stored in a different place than variables? Yes, they do. Okay. So, thing is a struct x float y float z int um, um, inside struct colon colon let's make sure we catch that again. Yeah. Attempt to use a non-constant struct member x without an instance. Great. Can't do this. Can't touch this. However, you can use these variables in a non-dynamic way. For example, using any of the queries like type of that do not require a runtime value. These are covered elsewhere in the how to. Oh, we're not actually calling this. Whoops. Got to recompile. A is 111. Wait, that's. Oh, geez. Lol. Okay, so I used to do print statements to sort of verify that they were floats by doing the 111.000, but then a couple betas back, I improved the float printing, and now if it matches an integer, it just prints 111, right? A divided by equals 10. Lol. It would also be legal. Let's just say it is. It is also legal to do this type of from an nested Imperative scope. Oh, you can't do size of. That's probably wrong. We're going to fix that one too. See, we're doing weird stuff right now. We're doing really weird stuff. This kind of stuff used to crash the compiler once upon a time, but these days it doesn't. That shouldn't also. Oh, right. That actually was fine. That error was fine. Oh, actually, I was messing up using my own programming language. Now I've got to remember, I wanted to print. No, it's okay. Actually, let's do it. So the print style. Oh yeah, it's on default format struct. There we go. I just wanted to print these. Okay. You want to improve programming skills, but you keep getting roadblocked for long periods of time. How can you improve your pattern recognition so you don't get stuck? What kind of roadblock? Do you mean like you have a bug and you can't figure out the bug? Or do you mean you can't figure out how to get started solving a certain kind of problem? Like, what is it? Size of int is 8, yes. Yes, size of int is 8. Allow representation of a number such as 100 million where the underscore is elided. You already can do that, bro. Oh yes, people answered that. Why didn't size of work? Yeah, I didn't. So size of takes a type in order to avoid certain kinds of ambiguity. I think that's explained in the how-to. I think I wrote that how-to. If you don't pass a type, like it was trying to look up a type and it wasn't constant. What I could say, like it might be better if it prioritized saying that it's not a type, right? Because if you're confused and doing the wrong thing, this actually isn't that helpful, right? But saying, hey, this isn't a type, bro, what are you doing? Which is an error that would happen later if we didn't hit this one, might be more helpful. Would it be useful to print all errors and not just the first? No, because you don't want to get spammed by errors. Like you don't want to spam people with multiple errors that are kind of trying to explain the same problem. Like that happens in C++ all the time and it's awful. What you really want is a good description that helps people understand what they're doing wrong and how to correct it. And those error messages do not really fall into that category. I'm going to put that in the to-do. Okay, that, I think maybe we could squinch that into the next beta, maybe. Maybe. I mean, the worst thing about C++ is you get incorrect error messages because, like, it says, like, hey, this type is not defined, but it wants to continue compiling. So it defines the variable as, like, int or something, and then you pass it to a function, and then it's like, incorrect type in argument 3, int. And you're like, what? And you're like, oh, it decided it was an int because it didn't know what it, like, that kind of stuff is just terrible. I actually don't know if I should call the inside of a struct a different kind of scope than a data scope. Like it might just be clearer if we said there's 3 kinds of scopes. Actually, as far as the compiler is concerned, there's like 6, but we won't talk about that because they're mostly for minor implementation detail reasons. You know, it's about 1 a.m., so I think we're going to stop here. There's a bunch more to write here. Okay, we did this. Oh, so this should happen. Okay, So I think next time we pick it up, I might do this during the day tomorrow. I'm driving to another city tomorrow, so that'll take a bunch of the day. So who knows? Um, but these are at least the topics that the rest of the topics that we want to cover in this one. We talked about closures. Maybe not that much more. Oh, how about the braces after if or not really a scope? Um, I think there's another exception for braces. I don't know. I think there's another one. The 360 no scope. How big is the second biggest demo? I don't know. Not that big. The game is by far the biggest program. Like, way. Yeah, my Tesla is way less suitable for road trips than anyone else's modern Tesla. So, no, I would not drive that. If I were to move to, like, North Carolina, I would have it moved here on a truck. I would not attempt to drive it because it's got a range of about, practically speaking, accounting for unknowns, it's got a range of a little less than 300 miles and takes a long time to recharge that. So you don't want to be trying to go more than like 300 miles in a day, honestly. Like, it starts making you grumpy if you try to do that. Code and run. Those might have little exceptions about if you use a brace. I need to go look them up when we write that part. I think those create scopes. I don't even know, dude. Yeah, I have an original Tesla Roadster, dude. These like newfangled cars they're calling the Roadster. Who needs one of those? Really? When you have a car from 2010 that takes 6 hours to charge. All right. How long did we make it on the stream today? Oh, I don't know. 2.5 hours. That's a little less. And I spent about an hour of that probably griping about the United States, but that's okay. We also ate cookie with a hair in it. And how often do you get to do that on a Twitch stream? I bet this is the first time for most of you to have cookie with a surprise hair. What are the challenges I'm having in terms of logistics living in hotels? It's just a little bit harder to get quality sleep because I'm just not used to what I'm sleeping in. And then when I start getting used to it, I move. Cookie with fortune hair. Are fortune cookies a thing in Taiwan, or is that just Chinese restaurants in the US? I feel like just in the US. Okay. Not even in Europe. Yeah, but in Europe they also don't know what iced tea is, so you can't trust Europeans about food. Not a huge thing, but you culturally know it. Interesting. Is it like something for special occasions or just certain kinds of restaurants? By the way, when I was there, I really got into drinking oolong tea, and oolong tea in the US isn't as good. It's kind of sad. I don't know why. I don't know why it doesn't get as much respect as it should. Do I have a favorite hotel brand? Not really. I mean, especially right now, most hotels are pretty bad because they're just kind of they're understaffed and they're just kind of grinding along through COVID and trying to continue existing. In the U.S., they serve you oolong packed with Splenda. Mmm. You have no idea if it's actually from Chinese culture. Yeah, it might just be. It might just be, hey, let's re-import this thing that the Americans made up because it's a little bit different and makes our restaurant have something different, right? The first fortune cookie that resembles what I'm talking about came from San Francisco. Okay. True facts. They don't know iced tea in Europe, dude. Do they have American Chinese in China? I mean, I would say both the food that I saw in Taiwan and in mainland China was vaguely reminiscent of what the American version would be, but the American version was definitely a little bit Americanized and not the same. But like, there's also a bunch of food over there that just never made it over here, right? San Francisco has the largest Chinatown in the world? That can't be true. Really? Is that true? I feel like the Chinatown in like Bangkok is bigger, for example. Maybe that's not right, but like I don't hang out in San Francisco Chinatown. The other thing is San Francisco has a giant secondary Chinatown that is not officially counted by anyone except locals. SF Chinatown is the most famous one. Yeah, they have that gate where people take pictures. Like Bangkok Chinatown was a serious Chinatown. Richmond, no. Actually, yeah. I mean, I guess so. So like Clement Street. So I'll show you guys the secret Chinatown. Will it show the poop on the map if I zoom in? Okay, so official Chinatown is like over here. Where is it? There we go. Dragon Gate. That's this thing that everyone gets their picture in front of, and you go through there, and it's Chinatown for like 4 or 5 blocks on each side, and then it sort of extends to the left. Like it's funny because if you go through here, this is like the main tourist street Chinatown, where it's like a bunch of souvenir shops and nicer restaurants and bars and whatever. You go 1 or 2 blocks over, and it's just like actual Chinese people's stores, right? So it's like, here's the markets with the weird stuff, with the shelves with all the stuff crammed in, and like the ducks hanging in the windows, and like fish heads and whatever. Like it's just very, within 1 or 2 blocks there's a very different experience, all right? But the secret secondary Chinatown is that people from outside San Francisco don't know about is way over here. Here, sort of. Like, the thing is, there's some non-Chinese stuff here too, but there's a lot of Chinese stuff, and it's like, there's like entire cafes full of like chain smoking Chinese business dudes, like doing I don't know what. Like it's really weird over there. The real Chinatown starts at the basketball courts. True. You didn't realize Americans have Safeway? Oh, they do. Yeah, buying up. Yeah, maybe those guys were all colluding on how to buy San Francisco. It's really weird because right here, this is like Geary Street, Geary Boulevard, which is one of the biggest streets in San Francisco. Um, and it's just totally normal. And you go 1 block over, and it's like, oh, this is like kind of Chinatown. Except it's a little bit gentrified too. And I guess there's a little bit of Pan Asia. So like Burma Superstar has been there forever, right? That's obviously Burmese food. Um, but like, it doesn't look that Chinese from the map, but it really is the secondary Chinatown if you go there. That's just my native tip to you if you ever go visit. Secret Chinatown is where you would get your boba tea. Yeah, makes sense. I used to live, by the way, talking about the Presidio. I lived for 1 year, literally uh, right here, Baker Beach Apartments. Like, which building was I in? I don't remember. I think it was like this one or something. But basically, I could go out here and walk for 4 minutes and be at the beach. Um, Now, beaches in San Francisco are not that good, and especially this one's a little bit in the bay, so it's not even have as much waves as this one out here. But it was kind of cool. So I did that like twice the whole year that I lived there, and then I didn't really go to the beach anymore. That was when I was working on Braid, by the way. I lived there for a year. San Francisco had a lovely Japanese garden. Is that correct? San Francisco has a Japanese tea house inside Golden Gate Park, but it's like not that great. The place with an actual good Japanese garden is Portland, if Antifa haven't burned it down. Um, Portland has like a full-on high-end Japanese garden that's actually pretty good. Like I was impressed. Yeah, all this is weird. Like people outside San Francisco don't really know these parts. So like Lake Street is like sort of, or at least it used to be. I don't know now, but Lake Street used to sort of be the secret upscale. the secret upscale neighborhood that wasn't one of the ones that everyone knew about, I guess. You know, like everything over here was kind of secret. Like California Street around here is like the secret, really nice. There's a few really nice restaurants that nobody knows about in that area, and nobody even goes to from like other parts of San Francisco. Like it's pretty. I don't know why this is all so secret right here, but it just kind of is. How are the Portland protest riots? Did they die down? Not that I've heard. I mean, they died down a little bit, but they're still going basically. Why is there a China Beach in SF? Because we have the biggest Chinatown. No, China Beach is not anywhere near Chinatown. Um, I think that was more like a military code name. Where? How do we get the beach names? Like there's China Basin and India Basin, right? It's just like from old code names, I guess, or something. Dude, I miss when San Francisco was a nice place. Oh my God. Oh my God, dude. Such a shame. Such a shame. What's on Russian Hill? Not anything Russian. Russian Hill, it used to be like a mildly upper middle class, just people, you know. Like Russian Hill was like, it was not a super rich neighborhood, but it was like, you know, you were doing okay if you lived on Russian Hill. Now I don't know, because it's a little too close to the Tenderloin and all these things. So when those neighborhoods got bad, I assume the desirability of living in Russia Hill went down. And also, just as the buildings get older and no new construction or renovation is really allowed, I assume the desirability has just gone down. Why do I like Mulholland Drive so much? Because it's my favorite movie in the world. So basically, in San Francisco, it is nearly impossible to get a permit that changes the exterior look of your building in any way, in any significant way. Um, and a lot of interior changes are also disallowed. It's really bad. Like, I kind of just wouldn't want to buy a house there because you can't do anything with it, you know? All right, everybody. I'm going to sign off for now. Thanks for coming by. We'll see when the next stream is. We might skip tomorrow. We might not, because it's supposed to be raining tomorrow, both here and where I'm going, which might just mean that I check into the hotel relatively early and then chill. So we'll see. Thank you for coming by, everyone. And I'll see you all later on. Have a good rest of your Halloween, wherever you are, if you do that. Bye.